August 10, 1943. A United States Army general walks into a field hospital in Sicily. He is decorated, celebrated, feared. Within minutes, he commits an act so reckless, so publicly damaging, that it threatens to end his career and nearly derails the Allied war effort itself. No enemy bullet did this. No German intelligence operation. One man's rage. 2 soldiers. And a secret that the United States Army tried desperately to bury. This is not a story about weakness. It is a story about what happens when one of history's most brilliant military minds collides with his own worst instincts, and the political firestorm that followed. By the summer of 1943, the Allied invasion of Sicily, Operation Husky, was grinding forward under brutal Mediterranean heat. The campaign had been launched on July 9th and 10th, 1943, with over 150,000 Allied troops hitting the beaches in one of the largest amphibious operations in history. General George S. Patton commanded the U.S. 7th Army. His rival, British Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, commanded the 8th Army on the Eastern Axis. The competition between them was barely concealed. Patton wanted glory. He wanted speed. He wanted to prove that American fighting men could outperform anyone on the battlefield. And for much of the Sicilian campaign, he delivered exactly that. His troops moved with astonishing momentum, capturing Palermo on July 22nd, seizing headlines back home, outmaneuvering Montgomery's slower, more methodical advance. Patton was ascendant. The press loved him. Eisenhower needed him. The soldiers under his command both feared and respected him in roughly equal measure. But Patton carried something dangerous inside him. A rigid, almost pathological belief that courage was purely a matter of will, that fear was weakness, that any soldier who broke under the psychological weight of combat was a coward. Full stop. No exceptions. That belief was about to explode into one of the most damaging controversies of the entire war. The 93rd Evacuation Hospital near Nicosia, Sicily. August 3, 1943. Patton arrived on a routine morale visit, the kind commanders made to remind wounded soldiers they were valued, that their sacrifice mattered. He moved through the wards, shaking hands, pinning medals, performing the role of the general-ass father figure that military culture demanded. Then he encountered Private Charles H. Cull of the 1st Infantry Division. Cull was sitting in a chair. He was not visibly wounded. He appeared, to Patton's eye, to be simply sitting uninjured, apparently whole, occupying space that in Patton's worldview belonged to men with real wounds. Patton asked him what his problem was. Cull answered that he was nervous, that he couldn't take it anymore. The records indicate Patton's response was immediate and visceral. He slapped the man across the face with his glove. He grabbed him by the collar. He berated him in front of the ward's medical staff, calling him a coward, a disgrace, a man who deserved no place among the genuinely wounded. Then he ordered him returned to the front. What Patton did not know, or chose not to register, was that Private Cull had a documented medical record. He had been admitted with a temperature of 1-2 degrees, yet malaria. He also showed signs of psychoneurosis, the period's clinical term for what we now understand as combat stress reaction, acute PTSD. The medical staff was horrified. The incident was recorded, and word began to travel. 7 days later, on August 10th, Patton did it again. This time at the 15th Evacuation Hospital near Sant'Agata di Metello. This time the soldier was Private Paul G. Bennett of the 13th Field Artillery Brigade. Bennett had been at the front continuously for 4 days. His closest friend had been wounded beside him. He was shaking. He was weeping. He had asked a medical officer for help because he felt he could not go on. Patton's reaction was worse than the first time. He slapped Bennett. He drew his pistol, his actual sidearm, and waved it at the man. He threatened to shoot him for cowardice. He physically struck him a second time as he attempted to leave the tent, hard enough that Bennett's helmet liner was knocked off. The ward's commanding medical officer, Lieutenant Colonel Pereng Long, filed a formal report that went directly up the chain of command. That report landed on the desk of General Dwight D. Eisenhower. Here's where the story becomes something more than a story about one man's temper. Eisenhower faced a problem that was simultaneously military, political, and profoundly personal. Patton was, by virtually any measure, the most aggressive and effective operational commander the U.S. Army had in the European theater. His 7th Army had performed brilliantly in Sicily. Losing him, removing him from command, court-martialing him, making this public would be a gift to German propaganda and a blow to Allied momentum. But ignoring the incident was impossible. Too many witnesses, too much documentation, too much rage already circulating through the medical corps. Eisenhower chose a middle path. He wrote Patton a private letter that was, by any standard, one of the most extraordinary dressing downs one general ever delivered to another. He told Patton his actions were despicable, that he had acted like a fool, that if the facts became public, Eisenhower was not sure he could protect him. He ordered Patton to personally apologize to both soldiers, to the hospital staffs present, and to the officers and men of every division in the 7th Army. And he told Patton to get himself under control, or face consequences that could not be reversed. Patton complied. He made the apologies. He stood before his troops, a 4-star general, with a chest full of decorations and a riding crop he carried like a talisman. And he expressed remorse. Whether it was genuine is a matter historical record cannot fully resolve. His diary entries from this period suggest he believed he had acted correctly, that shaking men out of cowardice was the right thing to do, that his methods were harsh, but necessary. He never truly understood why the world reacted as it did. For 2 months, the story stayed buried. The Army's public affairs machinery, working at Eisenhower's direction, suppressed it. Correspondents in the theater knew fragments. Some had witnessed the aftermath, but there was a wartime system of voluntary censorship operating. Reporters could publish, or they could hold, and most held. The war was going. Sicily fell to the Allies on August 17th. There was larger history being made. Then, on November 21, 1943, the radio broadcaster Drew Pearson went on air in the United States and reported the story. Not all the details, not both incidents, but enough. Enough to ignite a firestorm that hit the American public with the force of a genuine scandal. The reaction was not uniform. Some Americans were outraged, genuinely and deeply so. Letters flooded Congress demanding Patton's dismissal. Editorials called for his court. Mothers of soldiers wrote to their representatives asking how a general could strike an ill, an exhausted enlisted man and face no consequences. The story touched a nerve that went well beyond military protocol. It raised questions about class, about the treatment of ordinary soldiers by privileged officers, about whether American military leadership was as democratically principled as the war's stated ideals demanded. But others defended him. Some veterans wrote in support. Some believed, as Patton did, that the kind of discipline he applied, brutal, immediate, uncompromising, was exactly what won battles. The newspapers were divided. Congress held hearings. Senators called for Eisenhower to explain his decision not to relieve Patton immediately. Eisenhower appeared before them and defended his judgment carefully, arguing that Patton's military value was too significant to discard, that the apologies had been made, that the matter had been handled. It was an argument that worked, but barely, and it came with a cost that shaped the next phase of the war in ways that are rarely discussed with full honesty. Patton was effectively sidelined. While the campaigns in Italy continued under other commanders, while planning for the cross-Channel invasion of France accelerated, Patton sat in Sicily, and then in England with no operational command. He appeared at public functions. He gave speeches. The Germans, who had captured some intelligence suggesting Patton would lead the invasion, continued to watch him. And this is the strange historical irony, buried inside the scandal, became a strategic asset. Allied deception planners, running Operation Fortitude. The elaborate campaign to convince Germany that the D-Day landings would come at Pas-de-Calais, rather than Normandy, made Patton the centerpiece of their fiction. They created an entire phantom army, the First United States Army Group, FUSAG, and placed Patton in nominal command. German intelligence, which rated Patton as the Allies' most capable commander, concluded that wherever Patton was, the real blow would fall. By making Patton visible in England, by feeding German agents fabricated intelligence, placing his phantom army opposite Calais, the Allies reinforced one of the most successful strategic deceptions in military history. Patton's scandal had removed him from operational command. His removal had made him available for a fiction, and that fiction contributed to German hesitation in the critical hours and days after June 6, 1944, when armored reserves that might have crushed the Normandy beachhead were held back waiting for the Patton-led blow at Calais that never came. Private Cull, for his part, later said publicly that he bore Patton no lasting ill will. He understood the pressure the general was under. Whether that generosity softened history's judgment is another matter. Private Bennett's experience was harder. He had been struck while genuinely broken, genuinely suffering, by a general who called him a coward in front of witnesses. The medical officer's report used language that left nothing ambiguous about what had happened. Patton eventually returned to command. He led the Third Army after the Normandy breakout beginning in August 1944, driving across France with the same relentless energy that had defined his Sicilian campaign. His relief of Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944, turning his entire army 90 degrees in winter conditions to drive north towards surrounded American forces, is still studied in military staff colleges. He was, unquestionably, a battlefield commander of rare gifts. But the slapping incident never left him. Not in the press, not in public memory, and perhaps not entirely in the corridors of Allied command, where men who had read Lieutenant Colonel Long's report never quite forgot what it said. He died on December 21, 1945, from injuries sustained in a vehicle accident near Mannheim, Germany, 12 days after the collision. He never commanded in war again after Germany's surrender. He died, as he had lived abruptly, controversially, before any real accounting could be made. What the slapping incident ultimately revealed was not simply one general's cruelty or one soldier's suffering. It revealed a tension that runs through every army in every war. The tension between the demands of institutional warfare and the irreducible humanity of the men who fight it. Patton saw soldiers as instruments of national will, to be driven, shaped, and, if necessary, shocked back into function. The medical officers who filed their reports saw something different. They saw human beings at the edge of what human beings can endure. Both perspectives existed inside the same army. Both were, in their own way, trying to win the same war. History has not resolved the argument between them. It has only recorded what happened when they collided in a field hospital in Sicily on a summer afternoon in 1943.